Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone watching, welcome back to the Bocce Piles channel. Today, we are playing some Premodern. We are going to play some workerless Metalworker. So I guess I have to confess, I am terribly excited to play this pile. I've been super enamored by like the stacks archetype going way back when to when I was playing vintage, like budget vintage. With my Oath of Druids deck, like back in like the Mirrodin and Onslaught eras. Yeah, I remember like getting Exalted Angel in my Oath of Druids deck was an exciting upgrade. And so at some point way back then, I did actually, I was working like a summer job and living with my parents. And so I think I spent like $2,000 on a set of heavily played Mishra's Workshops from Star City Games to play vintage with, which was pretty cool. Although, the deck kind of does want the rest of the power, which was just thousands and thousands more that I was not able to procure. So, I've just been interested in this deck for a long time. And so I've tried a lot of different stacks variants, like in Legacy and whatnot over the year. And well, this is the one that I'm most excited about. This is, we're really doing the thing here with this Metalworkerless mud stacks or brown paper bag or whatever you want to call it. So I stole this list online from a Japanese fellow. I guess I'll say that like there are a bunch of Metalworker lists on MTG Top 8 that, actually play Metalworker, and then they play some copies of Karn and Mishra's Helix, which are pretty cool cards. Although Metalworker costing 3 and replacing mana sources in the deck, it's a bit clunky. Mishra's Helix is a heck of a card. I guess just overall, I think this is a much more consistent game plan. We have these Grafted Skullcaps as a draw engine and Ensnaring Bridge that locks the opponent out with Grafted Skullcap because we're always discarding our hand. We're playing some Cursed Scrolls here instead of Black Vice, which I suppose you could do in the other build. It gives you a nice outlet for your Thran Dynamo mana. And then there's all kinds of sweet things like Brass Man going on in the sideboard, Rejuvanation Chamber with Voltaic Key to untap it. And I suppose you could use it to untap your Null Brooch as well. So I think that's all really cool. Yeah, I'm just crazily excited to play this deck. Compared to like Oath, Ponza Oath. Here we go. Well, the problem with this deck is that the Sphere of Resistance game plan is like great against Phyrexian Dreadnought decks, but the whole land destruction game plan is not. So here we get to play Sphere of Resistance and then back it up with Smokestack, which is going to punish your opponent for gushing in a way that playing Thermokarst is not. So yeah, I think this deck is pretty cool. I went and got some Metalworkers, and then I think I realized I preferred the version without Metalworkers. You kind of have to try the Metalworkers to realize that you're better off without them. And yeah, I think it's just more consistent, and we get to play like Cursed Totem on the sideboard too. So anyway, we're gonna jam some matches. We're gonna jam some games. Jam some matchups, I guess, in the tournament practice freeform room. So here we go. Okay, we win the die roll. Hopefully our opponents like being abused. But that's kind of what Premodern is all about. Lots of, Armageddon and Parallax Tide effects. Anyway, we've got a banger of a hand here with, functional mana into a Smokestack. A couple different kinds of lock pieces. So this is a banging opening hand here. All right, well, I'm going to lead it off on the old Ancient Tomb into Mindstone. And pass the turn. The basic swamp from the opponent. I think what I want to do here is just get the Smokestack down before it gets discarded. Or maybe they play an island and can hold up Mana Leak. But the basic swamp deck probably has a hard time answering the Smokestack. And then obviously we're way ahead on board with permanents at this point. Okay, so our opponent sacrifices 0 permanents to the Smokestack, but I guess they are black-white control. So they have a Gerard's Verdict. That is okay. So I think I'll just discard probably the City of Traitors and the Bridge here. I'm glad that it was not disenchant. That's encouraging. But yeah, we're going to be able to tick up the smokestack here. And so what we need to do is add the soot counter after the smokestack sack trigger. Can be a little tricky to stack everything successfully when there's several of them, like with Tangle Wire and whatnot, several upkeep triggers. Okay, so yeah, here we can just empty our hand. So we really have the hard lock here, like on turn 3. So we get to play the Mind Stone. They're going to sacrifice a permanent, and then we're going to tap whichever land they don't sacrifice, and then there's no way they can get to disenchant mana. So they sacrifice the swamp. I'll tap the plains. And they just don't play anything. All right, so I think I'm going to sacrifice the Ancient Tomb here. We have plenty of mana. We won't tick up the smokestack. Ooh, a Cursed Scroll. That's fun. They sacrifice their permanent. So the thing is everything in our deck costs less than 5 mana. So what I'm going to do is just not sacrifice the smokestack, probably much to our opponent's chagrin. And I guess I'll just sacrifice the Dust Bowl here. But I'm not going to get rid of the smokestack, which I think is really funny. No. Ooh, and we drew the Grafted Skullcap. So now we're really going to rock and roll. Is this a dominating board position? I think it is. So our opponent ostensibly wants to keep playing it out. Okay, the opponent thought for a bit there and did go ahead and concede, which is understandable. So in this matchup, how do we want to sideboard? So nothing immediately stands out as amazing here. Oh, and the opponent conceded the whole match. So I have played a couple games and no one's conceded the whole match yet. I'm just trying to think how we would sideboard here. So Powder Keg would be good against a bunch of decree tokens, but that is like a late game thing. So it might just be the old sideboard nothing. But Null Brooch could maybe come in. So maybe I'd end up cutting some Powder Kegs. I don't know. Maybe you could just bring in Rejuvanation Chamber. Well, in any case, we've got a new opponent. So we'll see if this person enjoys our shenanigans more. Okay, well, this hand has like mana and a couple lock pieces, which is what we're looking for here. So I'm going to keep... We are on the draw this time. Basic Force and Aquarian Ranger. So maybe this is more like Stompy, or maybe this is just a survival deck. Powder Keg there is like the best possible draw, so that's pretty crazy. So the opponent's not going to be able to dump out a bunch of 1-mana dudes here. At least, well, I suppose they can. Just Powder Keg's going to clean up. Okay, the Wooded Foothills is going to suggest that they are a survival deck. Priest of Titania, okay. So I think we are just going to be popping the keg on 1 here and playing Tangle Wire. All right, we are adding a fuse counter. So I might as well play the Mishra's Factory. I guess I could play the Thran Dynamo. And I guess there's really no reason to activate the Powder Keg this turn, because they're going to have to tap all 4 of their dudes. But then they can return a land to their hand to untap the Priest. So I guess I'll go ahead and pop the keg here. Now, do I want to play out the Tangle Wire off of a Thran Dynamo, or just play the Tangle Wire? So I'd have to tap 3 permanents, and then 2 permanents, and then I'd have a chance to get the Smokestack down. I think this is worthwhile. We're just trying to gum the game up here to a point where we can play Smokestack. And Smokestack's pretty slow here. But I think this is our best chance. I think not doing anything is quite a bit worse. All right, so the opponent taps down their board. Basic Forest into a Findhorn Elf. That's pretty good. So we will fade and then tap. You have to click on the triggers in the opposite order, though, to make them stack right. Sphere of Resistance, huh? Okay, so that's going to make me want to commit the City of Traitors to the board. This will make this gives me an extra permanent to tap. So yeah, next turn we can Thran Dynamo into the Smokestack. So I think Sphere of Resistance was probably a really good draw there. And it's going to limit what our opponent can do. They do have access to 3 mana, but I think the Sphere is pretty good nonetheless. It's just a question of if it's enough. Oh, yeah, this costs 3, right? Because they made 3 mana and then it costs 3. Cool. Okay. So I get to tap some boys here. Or, I don't know. I guess they're not boys, they're artifacts. Another Smokestack. That's probably really good. So I'll play the Thran Dynamo. Oh, I have to pay an extra. Okay, I guess I forgot this. I forgot about the Sphere. So I'll just go ahead and play the Smokestack. And I think I just won't play anything else. I don't want to lose my City of Traitors. And then, so you want them to sack, then tap. That is the correct order of operations. Even though they're sacking for 0 this turn. And then we are F6'd. Okay, so they've survival the Yavimaya Granger for an Anger. So now their priest has haste. They have 3 mana, so I guess they can get another priest here is probably the plan. No, because the priest only taps for 2, so they can get like an elf, but not another priest here and play it. Quirion Ranger, okay, that makes sense. So now the elf taps for 3. They do have to return a forest, but they do have 4 mana here. So do they have like a Yuktabi Orangutan in hand? That would be pretty good. They'll have to have it naturally, though. So they survival for Squee. And then they survival again. And now it's a Wirewood Symbiote. So are we going to return an elf and tap for 2 now? And I guess play the elf again. Play the Quirion Ranger. And they get in for 2. Okay. Well, no doubt my opponent has a lot of permanents in play, so we got our work cut out for us. Okay, so we want the Soot trigger at the bottom, and then yeah, our Fade trigger on top. We'll tap the Smokestack. Add a counter. Winter Orb. Oh man, that's not a bad one. I guess it's not that good either. But it would do quite a bit of damage to how many lands our opponent can untap. So I could play like Thran Dynamo into Winter Orb. And then play a land. Because I kind of just need the other Smokestack on board. I think I'm gonna go for the Winter Orb play here. Because this has got to be like worth a permanent or 2. Though I guess they're just gonna sacrifice a tapped land to the Smokestack anyway. But they'd probably still just be sacrificing a tapped land. Okay, so we need them to sack and then tap. All right, so yeah, they sacrificed a forest, tap the Wirewood Symbiote, playing a Fyndhorn Elf, tapping for a bunch of mana, a Deranged Hermit. Okay, so they can probably just attack for the win here. All right. Well, I think on the play we might have been able to win this. You know, it's a rough matchup. We do have Cursed Totems in the sideboard, so I think that is all. That's all well and good. So I think I'm just going to be boarding out Winter Orb here. The Sphere of Resistance is not that good either. But the Winter Orb seems pretty atrocious, I guess. I mean, I guess I should have just played another Smokestack there, but that would have done even less, as they would have just had nothing on their upkeep to worry about. Because the Smokestack would have still been on 0. So, yeah, Null Breach, probably too slow to answer Survival of the Fittest. Brass Man, more for blocking dudes out of burn and maybe goblins. Alright, I'll try this. So this hand has a turn 1 Sphere with Cursed Scroll. It's going to be a while before we can Curse Scroll, but Rishadan Port's going to be pretty good. This feels a little loose to keep. But the turn 1 Sphere is good. But yeah, it's going to be at least like 5 turns before I get to empty my hand. I guess I probably have to mulligan this. And this is kind of what I was afraid of. But maybe we can win on a mulligan to 5. This is like the same hand, but worse. So... oof. Well, I guess I should have just tried it with the opening hand. Now we'll never know. I guess I'll put back Factory. Maybe I should just mulligan this hand too. I have to keep it now. Okay. So maybe I could just play the turn 1 Sphere. Doesn't really seem like an option off the City of Traitors. So I think I probably do need the City of Traitors at some point to play like Thran Dynamo or Tangle Wire. I guess I'll put back these guys. And so we'll go like Factory, Sphere, Tangle Wire, and Prey. Yeah, and the opponent's keeping 7, so... Factory, you know, probably the best... you know, it has Summoning Sickness, and we want the option to attack, even though we probably won't. So we're playing the turn 1 Factory. Opponent plays Findhorn Elves. Ancient Tomb, okay. That's an alright draw. I'm going to jam the Sphere of Resistance. Well, if we top deck like the right lock pieces, this could work out. I mean, Ancient Tomb is a pretty decent draw there. I feel like Grafted Skullcap is probably the thing I'd like to draw the most from here. There's a 3-mana survival. So they're going to get to do survivaling in their upkeep. Rishadan Port. Doesn't really change anything. We'll play the Tangle Wire. Alright, the wire's in. The opponent's going to do some survivaling. Alright, so they've gotten Squee and Anger. And they do have another land. So I guess we're going to be holding up Rishadan Port here. So we'll fade and then tap. And I might as well just tap the Ancient Tomb here. Maybe there's something I could draw that would change my mind. So I guess it doesn't hurt to leave up the Ancient Tomb. Dust Bowl's not really it. Looks like the opponent's going for an upkeep naturalize in response to the Tangle trigger here. Oh, nope, something that costs 4 mana instead, or I don't know what's going on, but they tapped all their mana. Where did the white go? I don't know how they avoided having white mana in their mana pool. Did they? I'm confused about that, but okay. They obviously added nothing to the board, but they're just surviving on the upkeep. It works for me. And, okay, they did not draw any more lands. So we'll fade the Tangle Wire to 2. Tap some things that don't matter. Another Rishadan Port. That's actually not terrible. So the opponent's not going to have any untapped permanents here. Well, I had the auto yield on my Tangle Wire trigger. I've got to turn that off. All right, well, that's a lesson learned. Here we go. I need to remove the Tangle Wire trigger. Okay. So their Fandorn Elves should be tapped too. If only I could master the online interface. So they just survivaled for Quirion Ranger there. Or, I guess they got Priest of Titania. Okay, they're not able to punish us, it looks like. So that is some good news, at least. And they're having to discard to hand size. So maybe, I don't know, I can draw something real good here. It kind of needs to be like that Grafted Skullcap. Like, Smokestack is too slow. Tangle Wire would buy some time to get back in the game. I guess Cursed Totem would be a decent one. Well, let's see if we can negotiate the rest of this game properly. Tap the Tangle Wire. There's a Smokestack. Okay. So I could play the City of Traitors, tap for 5 to play the Smokestack, but I only have 3 mana left over. So that does not help with double porting our opponent. So here is the Smokestack with, we'll just have to port one of our opponent's lands here. So I put the triggers on the stack here. Tap my opponent's planes. All right, now we can yield to all the triggers. They get back their squee. Here's a Quirion Ranger. So they can return the forest. And then, yeah, so now they have 2 mana, so they can probably get another 1 mana dude down. And it is indeed a Birds of Paradise. Okay, so trigger at the bottom, then a Smokestack trigger. Then these triggers. What we'll want to do is try to sacrifice the Tangle Wire to the Smokestack next turn. Grafted Skullcap. Well, that is a pretty good one if we can like survive for 1 more turn here. So let's see. 1, 2. I guess I'm just going to use the Ancient Tomb here. Okay. That gives me some flexibility in my porting, depending on how my opponent, like they might try to like float mana or something into their draw step. So we want them to sack and then tap, even though the tap is on 0. So we'll see what they're sacrificing here. Plains, that makes sense. That is the one they cannot survival and response with. Good news is they also don't have a mountain yet. I guess they are not activating survival. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll be super excited if we get to untap with this Grafted Skullcap. And I will be cranking the Smokestack up to 2. All right, they're doing Quirion Ranger things with the Fandorn Elf there. So they floated a green and untapped it. So they got access to 4 mana in total here. I feel like they must have a Yuktabi in hand. I don't know how they wouldn't after all their survivaling, although I don't see it in their revealed pile here. But they could have naturally drawn it. Okay, they're playing another Landlore Elf. Well, that doesn't have haste yet. If these things don't have haste, I'm feeling pretty okay. So I think my plan here is to sacrifice the City of Traitors. Okay, so we want to do the sack triggers here first. So I don't even need to sacrifice my City of Traitors. Okay. All right, so we'll yield to all. Sacrifice the Tangle Wire. Tick the Smokestack up to 2. Tap 0 permanents. Draw 2 cards. Show me potato salad. That's not potato salad. A Mind Stone. That is not nothing. Let's see. So we can play Mind Stone. I think I will draw a card here. It's worth a shot. Another Ancient Tomb. No bueno. So I think I'll just play out the Wasteland, and we'll end up discarding our hand here. And we'll pass the turn. So we'll see what the opponent wants to sacrifice here. The good news is if they just sacrifice their lands, we get to hold up Mishra's Factory to block one of their attackers. All right, so the Smokestack is resolving now. Are they just going to sacrifice both lands? No, okay, so we get to port something. There's the Naturalize on the Skullcap. Interesting. Okay, I think we can live with that. Well, this is really going to be a bit of a slug fest. Our Smokestack on 2 versus their whole situation over there. So obviously they get to return this force to their hand with a Korean Ranger. Maybe I wouldn't bother doing that if we didn't have a way to block with Mishra's Factory. Like if I needed to tap my Ancient Tomb to man up the Mishra's Factory. Windswept Heath, that is not a land that can fetch a mountain, notably. 3 more mana. Is this another... is this a Yuktabi that's going to take out my Smokestack? That would probably do me in, but no, it's a Yavimaya Granger, so that's going to get them the mountain, so they have haste. Are we attacking? We are not. Okay. I think I probably have to crank the Smokestack up to 3. It's this is going to be ugly. So we'll yield to these triggers. So I'm probably sacrificing Dust Bowl and Wasteland. Another Grafted Skullcap. Wow. So this costs 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to have to sacrifice a bunch of permanents next turn. I think maybe this is... It's hard not to play this. This might be a mistake. I suppose I could try to figure out what their chances of killing me are. But I think it's hard for them to keep like a forest and a mountain and enough dudes to kill me. And the Grafted Skullcap sure would help with this whole sphere business. And are they going to like pay the Echo here? Yeah, they're just going to sacrifice it to the Smokestack. That makes sense. Okay, so they have relatively little mana, and the Sphere of Resistance is still in play. So, I mean, they can probably get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana here. I guess that's a fair amount. And now it's 6. What's this going to be? A Priest, okay. So that can make a bunch of mana with Quirion Ranger. That does seem good. So maybe they can get a Deranged Hermit out here now. It's like 3. But they did play a land already. So I could tap this for 3, return it for another 3, and then, yeah, that's 7, and that's like Deranged Hermit. And that is going to be pretty good against my situation here. Deranged Hermit, a good one against Smokestack, unfortunately. They've got the Deranged Hermit. Oh, no, Deranged Hermit's 5, not 6. So they were in there pretty handily. So they get to attack for 9, 10. So I'm not going to be able to tap Ancient Tomb. Well, I know one of the 3 permanents I'm sacrificing. 1. 2. I mean, I just have to keep the Skullcap around, I think, and hope to draw stuff I can play. And then, I mean, I guess I crank this up to 4. Like a Powder Keg here might help. It's a Mind Stone. Thran Dynamo. Yeah, so they've got it here. Well, we still got to dump out a bunch of permanents, so I don't know. I had fun, even though we didn't win, and I feel like that wasn't bad for a mulligan to 5. All right, going into round 3 here. Let's see. So this hand's a little slow, but I think these are fine, especially on the play. We can either like port our opponent into a Tangle Wire, and that usually buys enough time to get a Smokestack down, or just play Powder Keg on turn 2. A Treetop Village. Interesting. So I don't think I can afford to Wasteland my opponent. The Keg really not looking that good, but it is a permanent to tap to Tangle Wire. So I think I am going to play it, as opposed to porting my opponent. Sulphurous Springs. So I don't know what kind of Jund deck we're playing against here. So maybe they'll name Tangle Wire, but I'm pretty comfortable with... they probably won't name Grafted Skullcap. And if we somehow draw Ancient Tomb into Grafted Skullcap, I'd probably take my chances with that play. Wow, they named Stone Rain, which is, you know, a pretty good read, or that's a Ponza deck would be playing those cards. We are not a Ponza deck, though. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave... If I leave the Keg on 0, I can hit Treetop Village. I'm really not worried about them using Treetop Village. I guess I'm just going to crank it up to 1. We could always just Powder Keg on 0. Okay, so do I want... yeah, or could Wasteland the Treetop Village. So we hit the 4th land. Now, am I going to play... Tangle Wire here? I suppose that it is looking worth it. We're just looking for a window to get our Smokestack down. So like each draw step that gets us towards a Sol land here is like really good, like an Ancient Tomb or a City of Traitors. Okay, they are super tapped down over there. Okay, let's see. We want Fading on top. So we're going to leave the Keg on 1. And so I'll tap the Wasteland, as I have another one of those in hand if I want to do any Wastelanding. Sphere of Resistance, eh? I kind of don't want to cast it because it will undo my Skullcapery or Smokestacking. Probably Smokestacking. I think I'm actually just going to play another Powder Keg here, sadly. My opponent is pretty tapped down, so they'll have to do their best with 1 mana. And whichever 4-drop, like if they somehow get like a Birds of Paradise out and Flashback of All Therapy, we'll still have Smokestack or Grafted Skullcap. So okay, it looks like it's going how we drew it up. So we'll fade first. We'll decline these kegs. Keg just being a card in play. I think I'll tap the keg on 1. Another Skullcap. Let's see. So I'm just going to get the Smokestack out. And see what our opponent can do with 2 mana. Sack then tap is how you do this. It can be a little tricky getting all the triggers right under a time crunch. Which, this being Magic Online, we kind of always are under a time crunch. Alright, the opponent's got 3 mana to do something here. A Morph. So maybe a Nantuko Vigilante. We're just going to be able to kill that thing. Okay, so let's see here. We want to sack last, or soot counter last. Do this. And then let's see, we want to fade first. And then we have some Powder Keg triggers. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pop this for 0. That took care of their Rishadan. All right, opponent's on something over there. We'll yield to these triggers. No. Tap the Smokestack, that doesn't matter. Yes, I wish to use the ability. Another Smokestack. Ooh. I kind of have to play it, right? The thing about Grafted Skullcap, but you know, it would be nice if you don't drawing 2 cards a turn, but it does empty your hand. So we want our opponent to sack and then tap. But I think getting these Smokestacks out is pretty good. You get to leave them both on 1, which makes it very manageable when we're ready to let go of our own Smokestack. I wonder if they're going to morph another Rishadan and I'll regret having this keg on 1. I guess Pernicious Deed would be real good. A Blastoderm. Okay. That is fine. Okay. All right. So we want to, let's see, we want the Tangle Wire. The Tangle Wire's not going anywhere. Okay. Put those at the bottom. Soots should be at the bottom. You know, I did this backwards. It's tap and then sack. When there's so many triggers, it can be confusing. That's why they call it stacks. Oh, I somehow did it right. Cool. I think I'm just going to sacrifice the Powder Keg here. So this is the keg on 1, or the stack on 1. We'll leave that out as it is. And so like Ancient Tomb would be like just an amazing draw here. Another Grafted Skullcap. All right, I think I just have to play the Skullcap. I mean, alternatively, I could play the Sphere of Resistance and then tap. We could port our opponent. Maybe that's okay. Like, this helps us keep the Smokestack around another turn. Because next turn we'll sacrifice the Sphere and the Wasteland. So we want our opponent to sack and then tap. They tapped nothing, of course. All right, we will tap the Sulphurous Springs. So the opponent's on like a Jund Fires type deck, something like that, maybe. 3 mana. Don't forget about the Sphere. I guess if they flashback Blaster and Cabal Therapy, it's pretty devastating. It looks like they're going to be tapped out and not doing that, though, so that's good news. Okay, so we want to sacrifice her. So Soot's at the bottom. Soot at the bottom. Fade at the very below that, and then okay. We'll yield to all. Sacrifice Tangle Wire. Sacrifice Sphere of Resistance. No. Yeah, we're good on one here. Draw a card. It's a Thran Dynamo. Ooh, that's a good one. I wish I just drawn another land at some point. We'd be in such clutch shape, but it just didn't quite work out. So I'm just going to play the Grafted Skullcap here. Not drawing a land on those many turns was pretty awkward, sadly. Because what am I going to sacrifice to the Smokestack now? We just hit all the 4-drops. So I guess if one of those Grafted Skullcaps was a Winter Orb, that probably would be like really good. That's what I did with the deck construction. They are down to 2 mana on the plus side. So, but they do have a land. They are going to suit up the Treetop Village here. Okay. So I probably have to sacrifice one of the Smokestacks to itself. And then I'm just going to sacrifice a Wasteland and hope that we draw mana off the Grafted Skullcap here. There's some mana. That's a good start. And there's a Thran Dynamo. Okay. So what we have to do is chump block with the Mishra's Factory on the Blasted Erm. So we could get ruined by like a Wasteland here, or just a removal spell. It looks like they're just going in for an attack. Okay. All right. The fact that looks like we're surviving this, they could still have like Diabolic Edict or Smother here. They're pausing, so maybe they do, or maybe they don't. Okay, wow. So we get to block. I think we're okay now. I'll just give it, we'll juice it up just because. Okay, so now I get to sacrifice the City of Traitors to the Smokestack. A morph. That's probably a Rishadan. Cool. Rishadan is just a 3/4, right? So if they... Alright, we'll live. If that gets to attack. We'll leave it how it is and draw 2 cards. A Tangle Wire, that's like a really good draw. Okay, now we're really in the clear. We did it, folks. There's a little dicey for a minute, but we got there. I think I'm just gonna... I don't see much reason not to just Wasteland the city now here. As much fun as it would be to tap it. Okay, so we want them to sack and then tap. Okay, I don't need to port anything. So I think I'm probably going to sacrifice the Dust Bowl here. Everything in my deck does cost 4 or less. And then I get to keep the Smokestack around. Assuming I have enough permanents here, which I think I do to have everything tapped and still be holding up mana. So anyway, Soot counter at the bottom. And then Fade at the top. One, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna let go of the Dust Bowl. If we get 2 permanents that we can play here, we'll be in really good shape. That's a permanent I can play. That's not a permanent I can play. I think it's okay. We'll pass the turn. So have the opponent sack then tap. Oh, they sacrificed the Rishadan. So they probably can't play anything here. And I can just sacrifice the Tangle Wire to the Smokestack now. Because they are locked out. So let's see, or most likely locked out anyway. So Soot Counter on the bottom, this thing. Fade at the top. Yield to all. Tap stuff that doesn't matter. Sacrifice the wire. That's fine. No. Draw 2 cards. Another Smokestack. That's a permanent I can play. This is a permanent I can play. We can just tap like this. Pass the turn. Only one Smokestack trigger I gotta worry about here. Well, I guess they both go on the stack. I think I'm gonna not bother to take 2 damage to port their 1 land, is just where we're at in this game. Let's see. Okay, so trigger at the bottom, then sack triggers. I'll sacrifice the Ancient Tomb. I will yield to these triggers. Let's say no. Say no. Let's draw a couple cards. Ancient Tomb. Do I like even need Ensnaring Bridge? I can just sacrifice it to the Smokestack later. We can always yield to these, but I guess I'm F6'd anyway, usually at this point, so it doesn't really matter. We sacrifice a permanent. Okay, so triggers at the bottom. Sacrifice the Skullcap. Yield to all. You may make those auto yields. Do I just use the ability? No. No. Dang, I sacrificed the wrong permanent. Holy crap. That's a blunder. That's not what I meant to do. Well, dang, I wish I had the Grafted Skullcap still. That would have been a lot. This is going to be a grueling remainder of the game here. I guess this is game 1 and I used up 10 minutes. Oof. Alright, so triggers at the bottom. Sacrifice the Ensnaring Bridge. No. No. Maybe we'll draw another Ensnaring Bridge or just a win con. This counts as a win con. Whoops, I've got a Sphere of Resistance in play. Okay, alright, they're ready to concede. Great. Okay, so I don't have any amazing sideboard cards for this matchup. I think Rejuvenation Chamber could maybe be okay, but like Winter Orb, I think it's fine. The Sphere is fine. Well, the Sphere is kind of weak on the draw, actually. So I think that this is a play that I like making. Is there some way I can get the Voltaic Key in here? I don't really need... I don't think Curse Scroll does a lot against them. If I just don't screw up my sacrifice triggers, we will have... we'll be able to attack for the win with Mishra's Factory with considerably less clicks, I believe. All right. So this hand looks like a mulligan, just 1 land. This hand looks pretty dope. Probably 1 keg is sufficient. I'd rather have my Winter Orb. Duress, so they get to take our best card. I wonder what they think it is. Probably Tangle Wire. Winter Orb, okay, that's fine. Thran Dynamo, a great draw. I'll just play the keg here. So we know they have Blastoderm, but that's kind of a long way off. So I think it's just going to be Thran Dynamo into Tangle Wire. Leave the Powder Keg on 0 for potential morphs. Okay, well, they've got another Duress. So are they just going to take the Tangle Wire? They are. We'll leave this how it is. Okay. Play the Thran Dynamo. And I think is having the Winter Orb in play good? I don't know. It's going to hit us before it hits them is the thing. See, I'd rather they tap out for something like a Call of the Herd. Yeah, that works. Okay. It's going to be a no. Cursed Scroll. So we get to play Winter Orb. That's definitely happening. Playing Cursed Scroll. Maybe I was supposed to like get. I'm missing a free Cursed Scroll activation here because I got extra mana. All right, whatever. Maybe there's just no reason to play the Rishadan Port this turn. Like maybe they play something I want to Curse Scroll here. Take 2 damage to scroll. I guess I'm just gonna pop this off here and save my life while I can. It's gonna be quite a while, I think, before the other Call of the Herd happens. Do I want to take 2 damage to scroll my opponent? Probably not. Grafted Skullcap. There is a draw. Okay, so we'll tap here. Play the Grafted Skullcap. So this, I think, actually works out pretty well. I get to use that extra mana and tap my opponent's forest right now. And that still gets them under the orb here. And, okay. Well, we're F6 through that trigger. All right, the opponent untaps their forest. And they are just doing nothing. So we are fully untapped, drawing 2 cards. And it looks pretty good. Would I rather like Wasteland them here? It's pretty similar. I guess the Rishadan Port is like an extra permanent in play. Okay. So what I can do is Curse Scroll my opponent. And then we'll use Ancient Tomb to tap our opponent's lands. And yeah, I mean, I can just do it like right now, basically. Oh, no. Well, okay. There's a thing about clicking on Magic Online. I don't even know why it let me tap 3 lands like that. I was just trying to target both things. Whatever. We'll get past this, maybe. They do get to flashback their Call of the Herd here, or play some kind of chonker. Ugh. A Ravenous Baloth. Okay. Well, we need to not die to that now, on account of that stupidity. Does Ancient Tomb matter? Nothing in my deck costs 5, so... Okay, there's a blocker. There's a Rejuvenation Chamber. I don't hate that. Am I going to tap their land here? I guess so. Rejuvenation Chamber, kind of a banging draw there. It's going to give us a bunch of time. So untap the Rishadan Port. We'll gain some more life. The fade happens. Thran Dynamo. Dust Bowl. Cool. So we get to play Thran Dynamo. Play Dust Bowl. And if they are so foolish as to discard a non-basic land, or untap a non-basic land. I mean, we get to Dust Bowl it. I'm sure. Wow. Okay. Well, they should have untapped a basic land there. Is what should have happened. And I'll just sacrifice an Ancient Tomb at this juncture. I mean, not that I haven't made any boneheaded plays probably already in this game. Sylvan Library. Okay. Seems like a decent one. Okay, so now we have all kinds of mana. I'm going to untap the port. All kinds of mana on account of our Thran Dynamos here. Rejuvenation Chamber just kind of doing the Lord's work. Okay, there's the Smokestack. So we will play Smokestack. Play Rejuvenation Chamber. Tap it to gain some life. And so from here, I think we're in a pretty okay spot. I just love how many permanents this deck puts on the board. It's pretty ridiculous. So they get in for 10. Or get us down to 10, I mean. And so do they have something to do with 2 mana here? A Grim Lavamancer. Well, I feel like that's going to get eaten up by a Curse Scroll in the near future. So let's untap Rishadan Port. Okay, we'll put the Fadings at the bottom. Then the Soot. Okay, we'll tap these guys to gain life. Okay. I don't even have to sack everything to the Smokestack here. So we don't get to do anything fun with our Fading Rejuvenation Chamber. Draw a couple cards, another Smokestack. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I get to play Mishra's Factory, activate Thran Dynamo, targeting the Grim Lavamancer. Name a Smokestack. And then I think it's worth it to play Smokestack here. So I think what I'll do is take up this Smokestack to 2. We just have a bunch of tapped lands that we're not going to be doing anything else with. So we can do that for a while. The opponent has a bunch of lands too to chew through that are not going to be untapping on account of the Winter Orb. So I guess they don't have anything to do with the 3 mana. Man, the Rejuvenation Chambers here are just like amazing. They've bought us so many turns. Okay, let's untap another Rishadan Port. So we'll put this Fade at the bottom. Soot's at the bottom. Sacks first. Tap the Rejuvenation Chamber. Sacrifice a land. We'll yield to the rest of these. Draw a couple cards. City of Traitors. Okay, let's see. Let's scroll our opponent. Pay 3 mana. Name Tangle Wire. Play Tangle Wire. And pass the turn to our poor opponent. We discard no cards to the Grafted Skullcap. Tangle Wire trigger on the bottom. Yield to a bunch of Smokestack triggers. Okay, they are fully tapped down. Okay, let's see. I'll untap a Rishadan Port. Let's see. So Fading triggers at the bottom. All right, the opponent sees the writing on the wall there. Cool. Yeah, so we played 3 matches there. We lost to the one good deck. But, you know, it was a mulligan to 5, and you can see how the deck works. I just had fun every matchup. It is just great dumping artifacts on the battlefield and then getting out a Grafted Skullcap and dumping even more. And, you know, my only regret is we didn't get Brassman in play against a burn deck, or you get, like, the Null Brooch thing going on. Yeah, I mean, this is just is about as much fun as you could possibly have in my book. So, man, yeah, I love playing this deck in Premodern. I don't know, we'll see. I mean, my go-to Premodern deck, you know, it is going to be like, you know, some kind of Terravore. I'm just trying to find where's like my Rith list. You know, this is like probably what I'd have to take to a big tournament, you know, something boring like this. It's like that in like Replenish. Those are like the serious decks that I've been playing around with. But this thing is, I don't know, it seems pretty... You can see how it works, right? And there are like a lot actual like play decisions to make. It's not just like Mishra's Workshop at like a Trinisphere and your opponent is bricked for several turns. And it is crazy stacking up all those triggers. So anyway, man, that is just, it does not get much better than this, folks. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Have a good one.